Hi, I'm Eric Lubau, and welcome to Beyond the Belt. This is a conversation with Mike McLean, a black belt out of Torquay, Victoria, Australia. Mike is an artist who focuses mostly on painting on reclaimed materials. He has painted hundreds of thousands of wagtails that have made it all over the world. He's also an art teacher and a poet. I hope you enjoy our chat. Hey, Mike, thanks for being here.
No problem, Eric. How are you?
I'm doing good. What was it like for you to get your black belt?
Um, I haven't actually thought about that in a few years. I do recall being quite surprised, and shocked, and it was all very surreal, to be honest with you. Um, and I think one of the points to make is that when you get your when I got my black belt, I just suddenly felt like I knew nothing, and I had so much to learn, and like the journey was just starting, and I still feel that way. I think I'm 4 years in now. Um, Yeah. No, I certainly am way more critical about my own abilities on the mats as a result of getting black belt. But I guess that's jiu-jitsu is such a humbling pursuit that that's I think most people understand that who've trained consistently for a few years.
Was there a point where it felt different for you? I mean, you said you still feel that way, but was there a point where you were like, "Oh, I actually feel like I deserve it"? Actually, that's a good question before I get there. Did you feel like you deserved it, or was it too early, or how did it land for you?
I feel like I deserved it. I'd been training for I think 13 years quite consistently. Um, the first 7 years, I think up to purple belt, we only had locally in Torquay, Victoria, Australia. We only had 2 sessions a week. So, at that amount of training per week, it did take quite a long time to get up to black belt. But I no, I think I deserved it. I guess my insecurities now lie in that the game has changed so much in the last probably 5 to 10 years, with leg attacks becoming a very popular thing over the last 5 to 10 years. Um, and I'm having to sort of reassess my abilities and learn new things as a result of that, which is very healthy. Um, but yeah, no, I definitely have insecurities all the time about it. But I think that is just the nature of jujitsu. It's what makes it
Yeah.
so good for men and women, but men in particular need that humbling. You know, um, and it's good that I'm still questioning myself. I mean, you don't get your black belt and suddenly think you're the big dog or whatever. Well, hopefully not.
Well, you don't, but certainly some people do.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I think that the beauty of jiu-jitsu is it just, no matter who you are, there's always going to be someone who can be more skillful, more athletic, et cetera, et cetera. Especially as you're getting older. I mean, I'm 50 in May, and I'm training with guys who are, in their early 20s and absolute weapons, physically. So, yeah, I don't know. But yes, I was shocked when I
Has
got my.
has jujitsu changed for you? Like the way you train it now that you're getting closer to 50? Like, does
Absolutely.
that mean anything about how you play on the mat?
Well, I mean, if you think about it, we don't have an off season. We train all throughout the year. Whereas some sports, they'll have their season and they'll have an off season to rest and recuperate. Whereas we just go the whole time, and that starts to and jiu-jitsu is quite harsh on the body, especially when you're younger and rolling in a more competitive manner. And you collect injuries, and everyone's always talking about their their current pet injury or their shoulder or their knee or their whatever. My hands are very sore all the time as a result of jiu-jitsu. But I'm now trying to train for longevity, and very careful about the way I roll, who I roll with, and I really just want longevity. And I'm treating it more of an intellectual pursuit now, as opposed to something for fitness. I've started doing a lot of gym work, which I'd never done in my entire life since my son started going to the gym, and that's actually been really good for me, for my body, protecting my body on the mats. But yeah, no, I think I'm enjoying it a lot more now because I'm using that methodology in my approach, and I'm I'm just not taking it seriously as I used to. I just want to be able to keep training for another decade. The factors that I've just mentioned seem to be working for me in that regard. I don't care if I get tapped 100 times a night. I'm not trying to win any medals. I'm just trying to be as humble and as safe and happy as I can be whilst training. Essentially, that's where I'm at.
I
Whereas
think that's a great way to be.
10 years ago, I didn't think any of that. I just wanted to train. I wanted to train hard. I was hungry, um, and certainly less hesitant and cautious about being injured than I am now. Um, so yeah.
When
How,
you say being hungry, do you mean like were you on the mat trying to kill people, or not your training partners necessarily, but was it more about competing? What were you hungry?
I guess it was really hungry just to get better and to progress through the higher belts and get my black belt. It's not really. I think I definitely was a little bit more ego driven when I was younger. Like I wanted to win, to get more tap, more people. I didn't mind being beaten because, of course, it's a very humbling pursuit. But now I'm sort of, I don't know if I'm older and wiser, but I'm certainly way more cautious about the way I approach training, and I think I'm happier for it. In a sense, both knees have had double meniscus tears, shoulders, fingers, the neck, everything. I wish I had have had that approach when I was younger, but maybe I wasn't capable of that as a younger man. I'm not sure. So I don't know. I'm just thankful for rolling still, to be honest with you.
I kind of feel the same way the older I get too. I'm just happy to be on the mat. I feel like good about losing way more than I did when I was younger. Losing's a loose way of saying getting tapped, but I just never minded it. And now that I teach more, I'm happy to let people like get a move that I showed them on me, even if it
Yeah.
doesn't feel so great, because I'm like, okay, they did it, they paid attention, and that's going to help them. And it makes me
And
happy also when that happens.
I mean, it's a compliment both to the instruction and the art form itself. I mean, jujitsu works, I know that. So it's awesome when people tap you because you're like, yeah, well done. Like I couldn't get out of that. I need to do it like you did it. If I'm going to use that technique, etc. Um, yeah. No, I took 1 year off up until about 4 months ago, and it was the first amount of time I'd had off in 16 years. It really changed my approach and my attitude to jiu-jitsu, especially coming back in this last 4 or 5 months. And all the things I've said before are new for me in regard to my training, and it's quite liberating actually, um, letting go a lot of the competitiveness of my younger years. I'm still competitive, but in a really different way. It's more about um, trying to do things with less physicality and more technique, and a smoother kind of jiu-jitsu as opposed to a stronger jiu-jitsu from my youth. So I think that's the way to summarize it.
That's great. It's actually I that is also something that I've been trying to do a lot more. What did you do? What was the reason that you took a year off? Just life?
I think in some ways I was a little bit intellectually burnt out, because of that no off season, and I actually took my son away for 3 months on a road trip from the south of Australia where I live all the way to the top and on the east coast and down in a van, and we just had an amazing time. When I got back, I still had some real niggles. My knees were still sore. My hands were bad. I think my heart just wasn't in it for a period of time. I was still thinking about jujitsu, still watching Instagram reels and going, "Oh, that's an interesting technique," and saving it to my account. Still very close with a lot of the guys from the academy because I've got such a fantastic social network through the academy. But yeah, I think the injuries were what really made me have a break for a year. And now that my body's going really well and I'm doing all this sort of supportive gym work, which has been fantastic. Um, yeah, I've just got a very different. It's just a very different experience for me now, and in a totally positive way. Um, But I think that's life, isn't it? I mean, as you get older, you view things through a different lens naturally anyway. And this is just one area of my life that I'm viewing differently. You know, um, yeah. But you've had injuries over the years,
You
haven't
had
you?
said to me, yeah, oh my gosh. I had in jujitsu. So what was funny for me is I was an all-American wrestler. I did MMA, I did striking, I did all this other stuff. And then the first month maybe I stepped onto like a proper jujitsu only mat and I wore a gi. Uh I my body was so used to doing some of these like no gi MMA responses that, for example, as soon as somebody went knee on belly, I immediately shrimped out and I did it so hard, but I didn't think about it because he was holding my belt and he was driving his knee forward. And I pushed the other way and popped my rib immediately because I wasn't ever used to somebody holding my belt. So, uh, you know, I have had injuries, and now that I know the difference, obviously this was 15 plus years ago almost at this point. Now that I know the difference, I don't do the exact same stuff, gi and no gi, but the injuries for sure have made me train differently and think differently. Um, we have some super athletic, as you said, super athletic, like younger kids at the gym, and they just, when they decide that they want to attack, you're like, okay, well, I'm in my 40s. I'm not going to slow them down. I'm not. They're going to be stronger than I am, and I just got to let some of this stuff happen and tap.
Especially in no gi, you can't control them as much. You know? It's
Yeah,
definitely more of a rodeo no gi.
that's for sure. You had said to me, like off camera, that you wanted to reflect on your jujitsu journey. Was there like anything in particular that stands out for you, or something where you were like, here's a thing that I really want to talk about if given the opportunity?
In regards to jiu-jitsu, um,
Yeah, in regards to jujitsu. Yeah.
I mean, I know you only interviewed black belts, so you would have heard a lot of repetition in the wisdom coming from people because we've all been through that, long process to get where we're at. Um, and I
Believe it
imagine
or not, it's not a ton of repetition. It's everybody. That's actually one of the things that's been most fascinating to me about this is it's everyone is saying similar things, but the way they say them is actually what I think is like the beautiful part of that thinking.
I think I don't really have any major reflections that I can think of right now, but I think I'm very happy that I stuck at jiu-jitsu and that I'm still doing it. I think that it's certainly given me confidence and calmness in all other areas of my life that I'm not saying I didn't have confidence or calmness prior to jiu-jitsu, but it's certainly, taught me to be more resilient and in, in the face of stress, in other areas of life. Um, because that's what happens. You learn to be comfortable whilst being uncomfortable, in jiu-jitsu. And I think that definitely travels across into your personal life. And yeah, I think any discipline does that for you. As men, and I know there's a lot of female jiu-jitsu practitioners who are amazing and can, kick my ass, but I'm just talking as a man because I'm one. Um, I think men need to also know that they can defend themselves if they ever need to. Heaven forbid you ever get in a situation where you need to use your jiu-jitsu in the street or the real world. But just knowing that you have that skill set there certainly gives you a confidence in yourself, I believe. Um, you know, I certainly not am a person who is interested in getting in fights and never have been in fights in my adult life. Um, but I think just having that in the back of your mind certainly gives you confidence in life. Um, I think that's definitely undeniable. Um, yeah.
How'd you get into jujitsu? Like, where was your starting point?
Well, I think I was 24 and I was in Melbourne, and a friend of mine, Jamie Bunn, who's been on you've interviewed before, he had started doing jiu-jitsu in St Kilda under Peter Devine, and he was, like most people, very excited about it, and was like, come down, you've got to do this amazing, did it, and I went and did it, for a couple of weeks, and I loved it. It was incredible. Got the bug, so to speak. Couldn't believe what people were doing to me, and wanted to be able to learn those skills myself. And I then went overseas for 9 years to the UK, and at that stage there was no jiu-jitsu academies in London or in Brighton, where I ended up living on the south coast of the UK. I did judo for 4 years as an alternative. And by the time I left the UK, jiu-jitsu had started to become established over there. But yeah, so then I came back to Australia and was in Melbourne for a year and started training in St Kilda under Peter Devine again. And then I moved down to Torquay, Victoria, which is actually where the first academy in Australia was established, I think 31 years ago by Peter. And I've been training under, at my academy ever since. Yeah, so that's, yeah. So I was introduced to it by Jamie Bunn, who's also a black belt. And I really wish I had been able to continue training from 24. I didn't really start till I was 35. So yeah, but that's life, isn't it?
Yeah, but you made it. I mean, you managed to continue training and like make it an integral part of your life, which is I think a lot better than many people are able to do.
Yeah, especially when you have a young family and you've got parental duties. Like, if you have an academy that's got limited sessions, and those sessions are around dinner time, bedtime with children, it can become a friction point in a relationship. Whereas the academy now has like such a busy schedule, you can train 3 or 4 times almost every day of the week, um, which is just fantastic for people now who train at our academy. It's grown in such an amazing way
Did
over
you
the years.
did it create friction in your relationship? Was that something that happened?
It absolutely was a point of contention. I don't think that's unreasonable. I probably would have felt the same way if someone was trying to run off and do something they loved, and I was stuck with, you know, the toughest part of the day in regards to child rearing. Really. It's, yeah, but like I
How
said,
did you deal with that?
I just tried to enjoy training as much as I can. No, I think, you know, twice a week. What I actually did was start a Saturday class, which hadn't existed before, and that was at a time that was way more convenient for family life, and also I could take the kids along and they could sit in the corner while I trained. That was also really fantastic. Um, so yeah, I just kind of worked my way around the that issue. Funnily, after my relationship did end, I was then training 5 times a week, like it's boom, and suddenly got a lot better, and progressed a lot quicker through the whole. It is what it is.
Yeah, I just think that there's a lot of people who don't quite know how to find that balance or maybe how to talk to their partner and say, "Hey, I really like this." And so, maybe if you had a bit of advice, but it sounds like your relationship did not survive that part of that journey.
I think the advice is really, be with someone who understands you and supports your passions, regardless of, the future and what changes may come about from having children or whatever it may be. Um, yeah, I mean, it's a two-way street. You've both got your own separate individual interests, and you should support each other with them, regardless. But, you know, I, I, I do understand if one person's trying to, like a lot of guys play golf and they disappear for 6 hours at a time. Like that would be frustrating for a partner. Less jujitsu, you can go and do a 1 hour, 1.5 hour session and be back.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, I think there's something really good about how jujitsu is short bursts. Like, hey, here's an hour a day, like an hour and a half, whatever it is. And golf takes people away for maybe once a week, but it's 6 to 8 hours or something like that. They're very different, but I
That's something.
understand. Yeah,
Yeah. No, I've got
yeah.
some play golf and they do these whole weekends away, and I'm just like, how do you how do you pull that off? So yeah.
I don't know. As someone who doesn't have kids, it's not a thing that I think about either. When my wife wants to compete, or we want to go, when our gym goes to a local competition, we just go. So it's for us, it's easy enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's good.
You said you and your son went on a road trip. I mean, I think road trips are one of those things that everybody kind of loves to romanticize. I mean, what was that like for you to just take 3 months with your son and just go?
It was brilliant, and it was something that I'd wanted to do for a long time. And it was also probably the last opportunity while he's still at school that we could do that without it affecting his progress. And no, it was amazing. You know, I bought a $2,000 van that I didn't think was going to make it there and back. It did, which was awesome. Uh, you know, we slept in the back. I built a mattress frame and everything, and we had a little cooker, and we saw some incredible spots on the way up to Cape Tribulation and back. And we had a focus on swimming, so we tried to swim in as many places as possible, um, like ocean pools, and then creeks and streams and other things. So no, look, it was just incredible. And if you can do it, you should do it with family, friends, um, and yeah, I'd never done anything that extensive before. I had driven on the east coast of Australia when I was in my very early 20s, but I'd never done something that extensive in a car. Um, yeah, it was great. A lot of money on petrol. Um, and you end up eating out a lot more than you plan to, so it's quite expensive if you're not disciplined enough in that regard. But no, look, it was a brilliant holiday, and flew my daughter up to join us for 2 3 weeks as well when we were out in Queensland, and that was brilliant because she was in at school at the time. She couldn't take the whole term up because she was finishing up.
I did something similar with my dog a few years back. In the United States, I did a giant circle around the United States. It took me about 7 months, and lived out of my car with my dog. All I did was go hiking, camping, drop in on jujitsu schools. Slept in the car sometimes, slept in the hotel sometimes, spent a lot of money on petrol. As you noted, ate out way more than I wanted to. But it was one of the most amazing trips I've done in my entire life. Just 7 months on the road, in the woods and in the forest.
Oh,
Wonderful.
I'd love to drive across America. I'd love to drive across Europe. You know, I just brilliant. Just such a great way to see the world. And you can do it cheaply. Be a bit more disciplined, with the food you eat. But anyway, no regrets. I had a fantastic holiday. It was well worth the money spent. So
Yeah. I got a little better at it actually. Like as I was going, I started dropping into jujitsu schools. What I would do is after I felt a role with somebody and I knew what they were kind of like, I would be able to say to them, I would ask them these two questions. Like, if you were only in your town or in your area for one night, where would you eat and what would you do? And so I'm like, because if I'm gonna have to eat out, I might as well eat at the best food that these locals know about, and I'm gonna do the thing that locals really like to do. And what often ended up happening was people were like, "What, you were gonna sleep in your car tonight? Nah, just come sleep on my couch. Come sleep on the extra room." Yeah, of course we're cool with dogs. And so it was. I ended up making a ton of new friends and started eating a little healthier when people were like, "Hey, you could stay here." So then I didn't have to eat breakfast out. They would make some decent breakfast, and
yeah, what a
learned a lot
fantastic.
of lessons about how to travel.
Yeah, I mean, look, the jiu-jitsu connection there is just brilliant, and being able to drop into any academy and train and make friends is just fantastic. And I certainly, the next road trip I do, wherever that may be, I'll be integrating that practice into it because that's just such a great way to do it, and also maintain your fitness and your skill set. You know, so yeah, no, I'd love to do that across America and just train the whole way across. That'd be brilliant.
It was one of the coolest things I've ever done, and I didn't plan it out that way. I had no plan. I just wanted to get out on the road and see what happened, and it turned out to be one of the most fun things I ever did.
Absolutely. What kind of car were you in?
A Pontiac Vibe, which looks very similar to like a Subaru Outback, and it's not a recent car. I think it was 8 or 9 years old when I started that road trip, and I didn't know if it was going to make it either. And it's apparently still on the road. I gave it to my parents when I left the United States.
Yeah, okay. Because you're in Germany now, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm in Berlin, Germany.
Wow.
You. One of the things I also definitely wanted to talk to you about was being an artist, and I want to talk like specifically about your journey as an artist in a moment. But just with relation to jujitsu, you were saying your hands hurt all the time, uh, and like, did you do anything different as an artist, knowing that your hands are a necessary part of your livelihood when you were on the mat, or did you just say, "Hey, if they hurt, they hurt. I'll get to the art."
Well, I stopped training gi about 3 years ago. I find that the no gi is a lot more forgiving on your joints and your knuckles. So I'm pretty much in constant pain every time like my main knuckles are just really bad. Um,
Oof.
Pretty bad. Like some days they're really painful, and some days I'm just so used to the pain now I don't notice it. But I certainly, was a concern for me, given that my main career now is my artwork and my hands are, my tools. It'd be pretty silly to do something that would be detrimental to, my art career is going to go in until I die, basically, because I'll be producing up until I'm in later stages of life. Jiu-jitsu,
Right.
I want jiu-jitsu to last a long time. The point where I was like, can I do this anymore? And so I stopped doing gi because, as you know, like even if you're trying not to grip a lot, your fingers can still get entangled in the gi, and especially if you're holding a leg and someone kicks the grip off, that's really bad. I know, I remember. Yeah, so now I just don't. I tape my fingers up when I train, and I try to use less grips, just more sort of cupping as opposed to gripping. Um, but yeah, I'm still able to train, I'm still able to paint. I'm just in a bit of pain, but you know, um, that's disappearing because I think I'm just becoming desensitized to it. Um,
That is concerning, but I think pretty common.
yeah, if I was a surgeon, I wouldn't be training jujitsu anymore. Like I couldn't risk my fingers. With the art, I can be, it doesn't matter if I'm in a bit of pain, I'm a little bit looser, it's fine. Uh, but yeah, so no, it was definitely a major concern for me in that regard. Um, but yeah, it seems to be okay. I'm managing it anyway.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah. Let's talk about the art stuff. I mean, I think that's a really interesting thing that you've been able to make a living off of art. I think that's a dream for a lot of people. Like, how do you make your living as an artist? Like, how did you get to that point as well?
Um, well, like jujitsu, you just got to keep turning up. Um, and my journey as an artist was almost like, I had to forget about trying to make a living out of it and just keep doing it because I loved it. And, you know, my journey was that over the years, because I did keep doing what I loved and retained a passion for it, my work um, continued to be successful and continued to sell enough for me to make a living out of it. Now, it didn't happen overnight. I've been painting for 30 years, um, 32 years now, and I, there was times where I wanted to quit art and just out of frustration on the commercial side, as in not being able to make a living out of it. It's some people say it's a good filtering system, which I agree with up to a certain point. When I was 19, I think I knew 50 other people who thought you know, in, were saying they were going to be an artist as for a career. I think I had two or three of them include, and I'm in that number, and now still producing artwork. Um, so it's a very similar journey for artists as it is for getting to your black belt. I mean, I can't remember what the percentages of drop off is, but so many people start jiu-jitsu and they don't even make blue belt, and then a lot of people get their blue belt and go and then they disappear. Um, it's same with art. So there's a lot of parallels with those two worlds. Um, they're both also intellectual pursuits, can be quite complicated. Well, jiu-jitsu is very complicated. Art can also be very complicated if you want it to be. Um, but I think the most important thing is to really just do it for the passion. Don't do it because you want to make a living out of it. I think money spoils things. Well, it did for me. I can only speak about my own experience. Um, but I had short periods of time in my younger years where I was making good money out of the artwork, and I could live off it for periods of time. But it's only really been in the last 4 or 5 years that it's gotten to the point where I can actually get by just off the income from artwork. Um, and I'm,
What did you do to fill the gaps?
well, when I was in the UK, I was working in residential facilities for teenagers with challenging behaviours, and I was a support worker, and I just worked my way up to managing my own home and team of staff. And then when I came back to Australia, I retrained as a teacher, and due to my experiences prior, I worked with a similar cohort in alternative schools. Um, I really enjoyed that work. Because I found I'm much more about the interpersonal and engagement side of teaching rather than the academic side. So I've always worked with the kids, young people who sort of struggle with boundaries and academia. And I'm thankful for their personalities and the entertainment that I've gotten out of that, and also helping and assisting them grow into young adults who actually have got some self-respect for themselves and want to make something out of themselves, hopefully. Um, but
What made you go to the UK to do that? Like, there's clearly, those places in Australia. So why'd you go to the UK for that?
I didn't go to the UK to do that. I went to the UK just to travel, um, because it's very common for Australians to go overseas, especially from Melbourne. Um, and I went over there with no real plan at all, to be honest with you. I just wanted to go catch up with some friends I'd met. Whilst previously I'd travelled to Australia and met some English people, and yeah, went over and caught up with them, and ended up staying for 9 years, and got into the line of work that I mentioned. I think I had a natural affinity towards that kind of work. I did enjoy it from the word go, and I was quite successful at building a rapport with young people, especially people in those situations. Um, yeah, so no, I've had some really amazing work experiences and met some incredible people over the years. Um, but now I'm still teaching now, uh, but only casually, and normally I am about 1 day a week, um, just to maintain my teaching registration, like my license to teach in Australia.
Yeah. Do you have any do you have any like interesting lessons that you picked up from teaching those kinds of people in the UK?
Um, well, I think it's really applicable to people all over the world who are in similar situations. I think that I don't know. I think you just essentially, if you're nice to people and actually sit and let them know that you're giving them respect and listening to them, and are willing to take the time for them to be heard or feel that they're heard, you can achieve a lot of things where as opposed to uh, you can avoid a lot of conflict in life. You can make a lot of new friends. All you got to do is be respectful to people, and they will respond to you, accordingly. Because they're used to people not being nice to them, and they're used to people not giving them that respect. And the moment they get it, they flourish under that. Well, and we all do. I mean, we all feel the same. Human trait is wanting to be listened to and respected and valued. And a lot of people who are in those situations haven't had that for whatever reason in their lives. Hence, why they're behaving the way they are. Yeah, so that's essentially my general statement across those areas of work that I've done in the past. But no, I love the work I've done to support my art career, and I think it's really brought a lot. It's given me a lot of positives to bring into my artwork, and yeah, I'm very thankful for the opportunities and experiences I've had over the years.
How does it influence your art?
I think it's just given me the opportunity to sort of stop and think about things. Like, if I just had and I'm not being in any way condescending about other professions or other ways of earning an income. But, if I was, let's say I was working in a factory packing boxes all day, which is nothing wrong with that. I've got nothing against that, but I certainly wouldn't be having those interactions with other humans that I've had as a result directly with young people. And I think that's broadened my thinking in life and given me a lot more to ponder and reflect upon, which has then fed into my artwork. Yeah, I just think it's yeah. I was obviously drawn to this kind of work. I had a natural affinity for it, and horses for courses. People end up doing what they want to do, because of their interest. Well, ideally, that's what people will do. I've always tried my
That's the
passions.
hope.
Yeah, that's the hope. I mean, when I look at my children now, all I care about for them is they're happy and that they do something that makes them feel happy. They don't have to be hugely successful. They don't have to be, mega rich or anything. All I care about is their happiness. I think if you are happy in whatever it is you do, success will follow. Because you'll be good at it because you enjoy it. So yeah. So no, it's definitely
How did
definitely.
you get into art? Like, how
Oh,
did you get into the actual art itself? Like, you said something to me, I think off camera, that it was kind of an accident.
yeah, it was actually. I wanted to leave school at the end of year 10, and we did 12 years of school in Australia. And I wanted to leave school and maybe go and become a land. I didn't know, but I wanted out. I'd had enough. I was doing quite well academically, but I just didn't have a passion for it. And I thought maybe I should go and do horticulture or go into the army. I didn't know, and they certainly weren't things that I was passionate about. But I just didn't. I was a bit lost, I guess, at that stage. And my mum sent me up to Queensland to her sister, a place called Gladstone, and in the middle of summer, and I was working with her husband, who's a mechanical engineer, and they serviced a lot of the big Navy ships that used to come and park there because it's coastal. And I did one day of work in his workshop, and in the stinking heat, and I was like, "That's it, I'm going back to school next year." What I did was signed up for what I thought would be an easy subject, art, at school. I didn't really have a particular interest in art prior to that, uh, that I was aware of anyway. Uh, I started doing that year 11, which is the second last year of school, which started to become a bit more serious with how your performance, etc., leading towards leaving school and then potentially going to university. And I just loved it. Like immediately felt right. It felt natural, and I took it extremely seriously. I was so passionate about it. And I remember at the end of year 11, you have to stand up and present your portfolio to, the whole of your class in front of the teachers and everything, explaining the first painting I'd ever did. And I was, talking about the emotion behind it and the meaning. And, and at school, I wasn't known as an artist. I was known as like I don't know, my nickname was Meathead, you know, which I hate. And, because I was always quite well built, solid naturally, and certainly wasn't viewed as an artist. And I was up there talking about my feelings, what the painting represented, and everyone was laughing. And I looked down, and one of my closest friends, I won't mention his name, was probably laughing the hardest out of everyone. And I was so offended. that, was, that was a big moment, that really solidified to me that I was like, well, this is who I am, And a secondary moment, at the end of year 12, when I was finishing school, we had the award ceremony for the whole school, and I actually got the art prize for my school for my paintings, and I went up on stage to collect my award. Shake the principal's hand, and in front of 600 people, all families, the graduating year, everything, and probably about 100 guys from my year level were chanting "meat head, meat head," as I was the art award. You know what I mean? So I always thought that was quite amusing. But anyway, there you go. Huh?
What No, I think that's actually like a really beautiful story because it shows that, who you thought you were or who others thought you were wasn't really who you were. And you just needed that little spark to send you in the right direction,
That's
and
that.
direction that you loved and wanted to go into.
Yes, yeah, no, it's I do I still find those two stories quite amusing to this day. You know, um, and it's funny because similar with jujitsu, like it's not always the biggest, strongest guy who's the most technically efficient or the most dangerous on the mat. Like a lot of jujitsu people love the kind of like, oh, the smiling assassin and the geeky guy who can kill you and all that. Like, but it's true. You judge people um, the book by its cover, so to speak. Um, so no, it is interesting. Um, yeah, so they were probably the biggest moments, and then ever since then, I've just never given up on it. I've just continued to paint, even when it's frustrating and hard at times. So it's nice to now be in a position where I am just doing my own thing. I don't really care. I've never cared about making money out of it. Money just helps, does help in life. I do feel very thankful and fortunate and humbled that I can now live off it on my own terms. I've always painted what I want to paint, and I think that because I've had other careers that I've enjoyed, that's supported me to continue to enjoy without the pressure of commerce or earning money to continue loving my art. And I think that comes out in the artwork. And you know that's my take on it. And that's my advice. My advice is the same that my father gave me: is you've got your plan A in life and you've got your plan B. Plan A is my art, of course. That's my main interest and passion. But I found plan B, which is more realistic. I still really enjoy it. I get something from it, makes me feel good. I'm doing good, but it's got regular, steady income. So, but now I'm at a point where plan A is taking over. But without that plan B, I would have never been able to maintain, that filtering system I mentioned earlier on about people giving up. Plan B gives you the support network for plan A, but you've got to do something you love in life. You've got to be happy. It's the most important thing. So, yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about that piece behind you?
Oh, this one. This is
Yeah.
fairly recent, actually. And I I work on plywood because I like to be able to use a lot of pressure with my brush strokes and really quite vigorous in the way I paint. And for about 25 years, I was painting mainly female faces. And then recently I moved into doing uh, like floral bouquets, which have been really popular actually. And I've also enjoyed doing. And this piece, I just decided to merge the two worlds. Um, yeah, and I've had a really good response from this piece actually, um, which is good because it was a bit of an experiment. Um, yeah. What do you What do you think of it?
I actually really like it. I mean, as somebody who's generally not into art or not like, it's just, my wife's an artist and a tattoo artist, and most of the paintings in our place are from my wife. But and I like what they've done because I can always see the person and the emotion in it. But I don't often see that in other people's art. That's not like the way I'm wired. But I actually really like the floral. I like the bright colors, and so for me, that art, like that piece behind you, really resonates with me as like a beautifully done thing. But I definitely wouldn't say that about every piece I see.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate that. And look, art's like ice cream. Everyone has their favorite flavor. They may not be an expert. People like, oh, I don't understand art. Well, you don't have to. You either like it or you don't, and you're entitled to that. You're entitled to liking your chocolate or vanilla or strawberry. It's really exactly the same as ice cream.
There's a relatively famous like personality named Gary Vaynerchuk. He's a guy who just did wine and all this other stuff. And he said something many years ago. He's like, which basically was that, which was either you like the wine or you don't. It doesn't matter if it's this expensive bottle or this cheap bottle. If you like it, and that's the important thing. And like, forget the wine snobs. And I heard that, and I immediately in my head applied to art. And I went from being this like concerned of like, what are people going to think of me if I don't understand this piece correctly, to just, do I like it and does it land? Does it resonate? And so now that's the way I treat art things. Um,
I'm on the
and it
exact
works
same
for me.
with that, and I think that's a real analogy with the wine. Like, you either like it or you don't, and that's all that matters, you know. So, like, I've drunk awful wine before that was very expensive, and I've drunk fantastic wine that was very inexpensive. So, you know, it is what
When you work with, you said that's plywood. Yeah.
yeah. So it's
I guess the question I have is just more generally like, what kind of materials do you use? What kind of mediums do you use? And how did you make those choices?
almost every choice I've made in regards to my materials has been economically driven. So when you're a young artist, art materials from an art store are incredibly expensive. So I would start painting on plywood when I was 17, 18, because I didn't have an income back then, because I was so producing a lot of artwork. And, you know, a canvas can cost you, canvas this size would cost you about $120. I didn't have 120
Oof.
spare. A tub of paint, like I use house paint, so I can get a tin of this, and this is just from a hardware store, would cost you about $40, $50. And that's not even artist quality paint. The good thing is that house paints now are UV resistant. The colors don't fade. They're bright. They've really come a long way in the last 30 years. And people are throwing paint away all the time. So, you know, social media's enabled me to link in with my local community and say, hey, is anyone throwing any paint away? And, you know, I turn around and there's, you know, tins of paint for free being dropped at my doorstep, you know, which is just fantastic. Um, I I try and reuse, repurpose, recycle almost everything. I do buy the wood panels, but they're very inexpensive compared to buying canvas. I do paint on canvas as well, but I prefer the wood for the reasons of, if I'm pushing that hard canvas, I'm gonna put a hole in it, you know, especially one that's already framed. And what I do is I build a wooden frame at the rear of these when they sell, so people can still hang them straight away, and it keeps them rigid on the wall. I can also, for storage purposes, I can have 10 of these stacked on a ledge or against a wall in my studio, not taking up a lot of space because they're only 9 millimeter thick, as opposed to a canvas that's about, I don't know, 3.5 centimeters to 4 centimeters thick. I mean, there's a huge difference in space and storage and cost. But no, I've always looked for alternative ways to save money in regards to my painting and my artwork. And I like the creative element of, you know, resourcing your materials in an alternative manner rather than just going and spending a whole lot of money in an art store. And, you know, it makes me laugh because, you know, artists, generally speaking, don't make much money. It's a very small percentage, similar to getting to the black belt, you know, less than 1% of people who start make it to black belt. I think it's something like that. Don't quote me. So one of the reasons for that barrier is that it's so bloody expensive, you know. And saying artists starving in a garret, you know, they haven't got money to be buying expensive tubes, oil paint, or acrylic paints from the art store. Like, it's actually ridiculous that people who are known to not have money are being charged very high prices for their materials with which, you know, to hopefully make some money. So if you can avoid that, I encourage all the people I've ever worked with who, when I've taught art, always encouraging the practice of, you know, getting house paint for free, painting on cheap material. Um, yeah, I think it's the way forward. Um, certainly certainly works for me.
Is there like any other intentional focus on sustainability, or it's really just economic?
Um, I'm certainly not a greenie, but I do care for the environment. You know, to a certain extent. You know, I've always lived in cities, uh, but I do like the thought that I'm recycling and repurposing stuff that otherwise would go in a hole in the ground. So, you know, there's certainly an element of that, but yeah, it mainly was driven by an economic need, and also now it's a combination of the two. I love the fact that I can repurpose, recycle, reuse, and not spend money on materials. My model is there's a lot of profit margin in my model because my material, and that's great. I've got close friends who are painters, and they come at it. They use expensive artist materials, and their profit margins a lot smaller than mine as a result. Not that it's about the money, but while we're on the topic, so
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. It's kind of important, especially when you need to make a living out of it. It changes your, you know,
So
yeah, margins.
one thing, and this is just on the topic of repurpose recycling. One element of my artwork is these little wagtail birds that I produce, and what I get for free. There's a fencing guy who have to pay to get rid of his offcuts, so he delivers them to me because it saves him money. They then don't go into landfill. The paint, which we've discussed, I get for free from my local community, um, and you know this is a piece of artwork that's cost me almost nothing to produce. It's just my time, you know. So I love that. I love
Yeah,
that this is.
I've noticed you've done a lot of wagtails. Like one, how did you get into that? And two, why wagtail?
So for those of you who are in this region of the world who end up watching this, the wagtail is native to Australasia, so Australia, New Zealand, and the countries around here, like Papua New Guinea as well. And they're a small bird full of personality, and they're quite visually iconic because they're just black and white, and they're very cheeky. They're really cheeky birds. They're very territorial. They're extreme. People are very fond of them in Australia, in this part of the world. Um, Probably about 12 years ago, I was doing a lot of murals with students, um, and I was looking for different. I was doing a lot of bird murals, and I was looking for different birds to just to add some detail. And I wanted something that looked at a glance like almost quite realistic. And the wagtails are very like they're literally just black and white. And if you were just a glance, this was my intention initially. You would think, oh, it's a wagtail. Then you're like, oh, hang on, it's actually artwork. So I nicked this stencil probably after about three or four other similar ones, similar birds. But this was my favourite. Uh, I made it to be included uh, in murals. I then was doing a mapping exercise locally where I offered it to my local community where I would spray the birds on their fence for free. And I was only going to do 100 houses. And then I was going to go back and I was on a private Google map. I was putting a pin, a star, to map where those 100 houses were. And then I was going to do on the map, I was going to do around all of the other birds where I'd spray, make the outline of a large wagtail. Sort of like when you look at the astrological, the creatures that the stars make when they do the point to point drawings of the stars. Like you've got the bull, all the other animals. So I was going to do 100 houses, then do the outline, actual go and spray to make the outline on the map. I was then going to print that Google map out to A1 size, so like a poster, and put it on my bedroom wall or in my home somewhere as a little art project. And I ended up getting, so I think it was like 378 houses later because everyone loved them so much and they were free. I stopped with that project and just continued to make these. And I then started making them on the color blocks. It was almost like a business card that I would give to people. And then during lockdowns, for whatever reason, these became sort of like a distraction for families, especially with young children who wanted to get out of the house. So they'd spot the wagtail around Torquay and down the surf coast where I live. And yeah, just kind of snowballed from there. And now, I've probably produced over. I can't even tell you how many of these I've produced. I'm probably around 100,000 now. And I'm
Are you wait 100,000 wagtails?
easily over the last 10 years. Yeah, easy, easy.
That's crazy. That's such a high number.
Like several hundred a week. and they're constantly selling. Yeah, like it's been phenomenal, and they've ended up
That's
all over.
amazing. Good for you,
Yeah,
man.
yeah. Look, I only ever talk about the countries that they've ended up in that I have photo proof of. I think I've only ever sent one to someone overseas, but otherwise it's 25 countries and counting now, and that's all happened organically. Um, I don't know if you've ever been like Torquay's a surfer town. It's on the coast, and we have a lot of tourists come through. So people come here, they see them around the town, they go, "Oh, what are these birds?" They then come and buy one, and they take it home. And then, if I'm lucky, they'll send me a photo. So one of the links that I'm sure we'll put on the podcast will be my WAG page, which specifically to keep a record of the countries that they've ended up in. Um, and I might
That's the Willie the Wagtail Instagram handle.
main account for them, but then I've got worldwide Wagtails just to document the
Okay.
photos of these. Um, but yeah, I'm going to break my
Yeah,
normal.
I'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, please do. But like I said, I think I've only sent one to someone overseas. And what I'll do is, Eric, I'm going to break the code and I'm going to send you one if that's okay. Just tell me what color you'd like. Because I don't think I've got a photo in
Yeah.
German wagtail, so I'd love for you to get a photo with a wagtail.
I would love it. I'll put it up in my office. I'll take a picture of it and we can add it to Worldwide Wagtails.
Please do, and just let me know what color you want. I'll post it to you in the next few days.
Yeah, I'll send you something after the I'll send you something after the show. Do any of the wagtails have a particular meaning to you, or are they all just your thing now?
So for me, that this image was always just a cool, iconic piece of art that I'd created because I love the bird. There was no deeper meaning. There was no symbolic meaning for me at all. But what I've found over the years is that people seem to apply their own personal meaning to the image. And there's some common things. People often remember loved ones who have passed. They usually it's related to emotions and people who are they're either missing or people that they have strong feelings for. So, I didn't intend that. For me, it's just a cool, very strong icon that I've created, and I'm extremely humbled and thankful for how much joy it's brought so many people and all around the world. Like, yeah, yeah, I'm so very proud of it, and yeah, and they're actually the reason that I've been able to retire from teaching, mainly because these are just moving so well. I still sell a lot of paintings as well, but these things have been a raging success that I never anticipated, and you know, still
That's
to
so cool.
yeah, no, I'm extremely I'm very proud of it. Um, Somewhat still surprised, like when I got my black belt. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
If somebody wanted to get one of those from you, would you be okay sending that? Like, because I mean, we're not a huge podcast or anything, but like, if somebody was listening to this from another country that wanted one, and they message you on Instagram, would you send it to them or?
yeah, absolutely. And the thing is that I only sell them for 20 Australian dollars each because that cost margin again, it costs me next to nothing to make them. So it's to sell it for $20, that's all my profit. That's something I produce a lot. I'm a one man mass producing wagtail, production,
Yeah.
and it'll just be $20 Australian plus the postage. I imagine in some
Yeah.
cases probably more than the wagtail itself. Funnily enough,
I
so
I think it probably will cost you more than $20 to send it to me in Germany, but we'll work that out later. There was one other painting I wanted to ask you about, which is Jamie, the one that Jamie had on his wall behind him of his daughter. Um,
yeah.
yeah, like what was that like for you to paint something so emotionally tied to one of your friends?
Well, it was a huge honour. Um, Primarily, first and foremost, it was a huge honour, and
And how did that come about?
um, I don't remember. I think Jamie had asked me to, or I'm not sure whether I offered to, or I don't think it was a surprise. I think he actually asked me because I've been a close friend of Jamie's since we are about 50, and obviously I haven't listened to the podcast of his yet. I know it came out. I will do. I'm not sure how much he touched our journey and Jamie's and his family's journey around their daughter, but
Quite a bit, actually.
okay. But it was such an incredibly monumental life experience for Jamie and his family, and also I certainly not as much for me, but it was still made a huge impression on me and everyone else who was affected by what happened as well. So I was very honoured to be able to give him a memory that he can have visually of her that he I know he loves the painting, and I'm very very thankful and honoured that I could be involved in creating that memory for him that he cherishes. And it's obviously at his office because he spends a lot of time there working very hard. I know. Um, so yeah, no, that was probably one of the most emotionally driven images I've ever painted. In that, in regard to sadness, someone losing their daughter, 17, I believe she was. It's just terrible, terrible thing. And I certainly had never experienced a tragedy, you know, that close to me like he has. Yeah, it's certainly got to give him some interesting insight and takes on life. But he seems to have
Do you
bounced back.
like painting emotional things, or do you like painting more the sort of whimsical bird and the brightly colored things that are behind you?
I'm a very emotive painter, so I have a lot of energy and I put a lot of emotion into my artwork. Um, and I don't paint sad themes normally. So, but I put as much emotion, happy emotion, into my bright colours, and that kind of emotion. It's just a different spectrum, end of the spectrum. But no, don't normally paint topics like that. I don't avoid them. I just prefer to create stuff that makes me have a very happy, positive energy, and that's what most of my paintings do. They have a lot of brightness and a lot of energy, and you know, I get quite into it. I do a lot of dancing when I paint, and got the music going, and I really, I have a lot of fun, and I really enjoy painting. Like it's similar to
What kind of
jujitsu.
music are you listening to when you're dancing?
Oh, look, my playlists are really eclectic. I'm from Mac Miller through to Pavarotti. Like it's really broad, and there's no one. If I like something, I like it, and people who get to know me are surprised by the different genres I play. So, yeah. So I mean, look, jujitsu, like painting, jujitsu, reading, they're very immersive pursuits. Like when I'm painting, the rest of the world just goes away. As you know, when you're rolling with someone, all of the day's worries, all of your thoughts are gone. All you can think about is, am I about to get choked out, or can I, get a dominant position, or whatever it may be. The whole world goes away. It's like you're becoming unconscious and focusing only on one thing. It's the same for me when I'm painting. The world disappears. And I was an avid reader growing up. It was the same with reading. I'd just be completely in another world in my head whilst reading. Um, so yeah, no, I do dive deep with my painting, and I just have I really enjoy it, and I do keep it positive, and that's why I think the bright colours and everything are probably just a byproduct of that. I'm assuming.
Yeah, makes
But,
sense. What kind of stuff do you read?
well, I haven't read a lot in the last probably 10 years since mobile phones have become such a big part of my life. Like I'm on YouTube now or on Facebook Marketplace now. That's become my when I'm not painting or doing jujitsu. But I used to be a massive Bukowski fan. Roald Dahl was another huge one of mine. Again, my reading tastes are very eclectic, all over the place, and I do find it very hard to find authors that I like, and I'll usually just read the first page. If I don't like it, no, it's got to grab me straight away. I've probably missed a few good books with that practice, but I've also
What
I've
is it
also
about Bukowski? I mean, people really like as a poet, people really seem to like be, if you're into it, you're like, okay, like Bukowski's a thing, but like what is it about it? Is it
I think he's just because he was very anti-authoritarian, and he was a bit of a bad boy, and a lot of his books about drinking and chasing women and not really giving two hoots about what anyone thought about him. And that's an attractive trait in a person. I'm not sure what he was like in real life, you know. Um,
yeah, me neither.
yeah, but his poetry is very, very powerful and very it's very accessible as well. It's not hoity-toity, highbrow. It's very anyone can read it and get something from it, in my opinion. And he writes very well. It's very easy to read. It's very relaxed and fluid. Um, so yeah, no, brilliant.
Is that how you got into writing poetry?
Um, no, it wasn't, but he certainly inspired me to. He's certainly been an influence, without doubt, because I really respect his work. Um, and there's certain things about his character that I really like. Um, I wouldn't say I'm the same type of character, but I certainly like. I think I just entertaining guy. I was right. I was from about the age of 13, 12, but it was always a well secret up until about 4 or 5 years ago. And then I started to publish my poetry on Instagram. And, I think some of the confidence from Jiujitsu gave me the confidence I um, gained through Jiujitsu gave me the confidence not to care about posting my writing. And, people who'd known me for 30 years who had no idea that I wrote, but it was actually something I'd always done. They were like, "Oh, what's going on, Mike? You okay?" Like I was like, "No, man, I've always done this. You just know, well kept secret." And
That sounds very similar to your, you got up on stage at high school and everybody was like, oh, this is the meathead trying to do art kind of a thing. And everybody's like, now, what, oh, you're writing? And you're like, no, this is just me.
no, absolutely true. So it's been a very liberating journey for me being able to um, just put it out there and not worry. I mean, there's been moments where I've gone, "Oh my god, that's embarrassing. Why am I sharing that?" But at the end of the day, it's just creativity and expression. And I'm not someone who writes with any aggression or with any political agenda or you know everything I'm writing about is stuff that I'm thinking about and playing with and feeling. So I'm just vomiting out emotion essentially. That's how I write and playing with words and trying to create something that hopefully has some beauty to it and captures people's attention and their imagination. But it's certainly been a real journey, and I know some people, uh, probably don't like it, but it's like I don't care. I'm just, I'm
Yeah, who
just
cares
been
if people don't like it?
exactly, and I've always been someone who worries too much about the opinions of others, and there's a real liberation in if you can ever find an avenue to get over that, which I have through my writing. Um, well, the publishing of my writing anyway. Yeah, I strongly encourage that you do it. Just put yourself out there because like there's nothing worse than living a life of regret and wishing you'd done something but not doing it. You know what I mean? So yeah,
Yeah, I feel the same way. How has like that impacted your ability to paint over the years? Like if that kind of freedom of expression and wondering what people think about you was an issue for you, or still to some extent is, how did the putting your paintings out there work? Was that a challenge?
I think the painting was the first step in me being able to say to people, "Hey, there's more here. I'm not just the meathead." And this is who I am. And the painting has always been something that made me feel very good about myself. And, I've always been very proud of people's reaction to my artwork. And I think the poetry was the deeper level version of that, that just took me a little bit longer to have the courage to let out there, And I admire people who it took me a long time to have that freedom and that courage. And I admire people who, especially young people who are doing it from a younger age. And I congratulate and applaud them. Yeah. So my journey's been a long, you know, has has been a long one, and with the writing, and I'm very happy with how it's gone. I don't regret anything. I wouldn't do anything differently because I am me, and it's happened for a reason the way it's happened. And yeah, no, but I think the last 4 or 5 years since I've really you know opened up, I guess socially, um, it's affected my painting's become a lot more. Um, I'm expressing myself, I believe, in a much more creative way with my artwork, and I think just the confidence I've gained from opening up with the writing has added layers to my painting that weren't there before. So I'm really happy with that.
That's
You know,
great. Yeah, I think that's fantastic. It's great to be like proud of your work and have confidence in the stuff that you create and you build. And I feel like that comes out for people when they have that confidence. It really shows in the kind of things that they do. It's a wonderful thing.
yeah, absolutely.
Is there any advice that you kind of you living this varied life, having these varied careers between working with being an artist, working with people, traveling? Is there any advice from all of that that you wish that everybody knew?
I just think the most important thing that people should be focusing on, especially if with their own children as well, and advising their own children, is just do something that makes you happy. It's the most important thing in life. If you're unhappy, you know, oh, and Bukowski writes a lot about this. Like, why in the world would you do something if you're not happy? Like, it's ridiculous. I'd much prefer to have less money and be smiling, you know, than have a whole lot of money and be miserable as sin. I think that's the key. I think that's key in life. Just do what makes you happy, and I think everything else will fall in place behind that. If you're happy, you're a well lubricated machine, and as a result of that, you'll do well in whatever it is you do. So yeah, that's my tip. That's
I
Mike's
love
tip.
that. I mean, that's why I do this a podcast. Actually, it's not for money. That's not even this is a side thing that I do, and it's just because I love getting to talk to people. I love getting to know people, and I love getting to talk to them about their passions and jujitsu, which is a shared passion. So for me, this makes me happy, and I feel like I'm doing my best to follow that advice, even though it wasn't. This is the first time I'm hearing it from.
And that's all. You do something you love, and that's gonna flow into other areas of your life, because you're gonna feel good about it, and you'll notice a change. Like, absolutely.
What are you excited about it for the future?
Uh, I am very excited to see where my artwork, uh, how it progresses. I'm looking forward to the paintings I'm going to do in the future. I'm looking forward to the words that I'm going to write in the future, and I'm also looking forward to traveling more once my son finishes high school, and also traveling with my children is a huge thing for me. Um, so yeah, I'm extremely excited about. Like, I love my life, but it's only getting better. You know what I mean? I'm very pumped about the future.
That's great. It's wonderful to be excited for the future. I think there's a lot of people around who are not quite that because there's a lot of other not great stuff going on in the world, and it's great to be able to be excited for the future and what it holds.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm gonna wrap this up by asking if there's anything that you want to promote, but I know there's at least a couple of Instagram handles: Mike McLean artist, Willie the Wagtail, Worldwide Wagtails, Mike McLean poet. Is there anything else?
Covered it all, mate. Thank you. Oh, I have started a YouTube channel. And I'm really primarily doing it for fun, and also to give people, those that are interested in any particular painting, they can go and watch. Because I'm doing weekly, I'm dropping weekly, and I'm focusing on a painting each week. And normally, if people buy a painting, they want to know the history behind it. They want to know the thinking. They want to know what's going on in my life around the production of that piece. So it's kind of, that's what I'm focusing on, and yeah, I'm just having a bit of fun with it. But yeah, I'll send you the link for that. It's Mike McLean
Yeah,
Artist,
please.
so YouTube. So
That's
you
cool.
get a chance, let me, because you've been doing this longer than I have. You'll be able to give me some tips.
I will do my best. Although I am also a bit new to it, only in the last sort of 6 to 9 months.
Yeah. Make sure
Cool.
you tell me what Wagtail you want to, and send me your address. I'll get it over to you.
Will do. Mike, thanks so much for your time. This was a wonderful conversation.
Yeah, it was good, Eric. Thank you so much for reaching out to me, and I'm looking forward to watching Jamie's podcast. Actually, I'll watch that in the next few days.
Cool. Thank you.
Awesome, Eric.
Thank you for listening. If you have any questions about living the artist life, feel free to reach out to Mike. If you find yourself near the surf town of Torquay, Australia, please find Mike and get a wagtail and a roll. You can find his contact information and Instagram handles in the show notes. And as always, thank you for your time and attention.